Hello, good evening. I trust you're doing well. All right. So I want us to quickly look at a new topic, budgeting. Budgeting. So under budgeting, we'll be looking at some very key areas. So one, we will look at, so the topic we are looking at is budgeting. Budgeting. So under budgeting, first we will look at the intro, which will be the written aspect, where we will look at what budget is, advantages, types of budget, and all that. Then two, we will quickly look at what we call functional budget. Functional, functional budgets. Functional budget. And then three, we will look at the master budget. The master budget. Master budget. But on the master budget, we will concentrate on cash budget. We concentrate on cash budget. For budgeted P&L and then budgeted balance sheet, we will look at that in level 2. Then the fourth thing we will look at is flexible budgeting. Flexible budgeting. Flexible budgeting. So these are the four things we will be looking at. So quickly, let's look at our left side. We have our notes. So when we say a budget, what are we talking about? Budget is an action or a plan of action that is expressed in financial or in quantitative terms for a particular organization or a unit of the organization within a given period of time for the future. So what we are saying is that a budget is a plan, and it's not just a plan that would actually be put into action. You see, as those plans are usually or mostly are expressed in quantitative form or in a form of financial statement. And the budget released mostly to either an organization as a whole or part of the organization. And it is mostly for a given period of time. And that time is in the future. So you don't do budget for a past period. Budget is done for a future period. And when you are doing budget, it should cover a specific period, if it's 1 year, half a year, a quarter, and all that. So when you look at features of a budget, you will get all the ingredients as per the definition we've talked about. So you can look at that. And then budgetary control. When we talk of budgetary control, it is a process. And the first thing to do is to get a budget. Second is to get actual information. Third, you compare the budget and the actual. Four, you are going to identify variances between the budget and the actual. Now, what do you do when you identify these variances? You analyze them, try to understand them so that you can see what to do in order to improve the variances. So that if the variances are negative, you can improve them to be positive. If they are already positive, you further improve them. See that? So that entire process is known as budgetary control. So you have a budget, get actuals, compare the two, identify variances, analyze and understand the variances, put measures in place to improve the variances. That whole process is known as budgetary control. Cost control and cost reduction. You can read importance of budgetary control or importance of budgeting or importance of budget. They have a lot there. We have enormous advantages in budgeting, planning, forecasting, and setting target. Budgeting helps in coordination within an organization. It brings about communication within the organization. It serves as an approval for some expenditures. In some organization, if budget is not approved, you can't spend. And so one advantage of the budget for such organization will be that it actually approves certain expenditures. Through budgeting, we are able to control, which we've talked about. Budgeting helps to motivate us, or budget helps to motivate us so that we can help to work harder to achieve them. Through budgeting, we are able to do performance evaluation. See, so once we set up a budget, we can always compare the actual with the budget we put in place to see whether we are doing well or not. And through budgeting, we are able to break down a long-term goal into short-term goals so that we can easily achieve them. As we achieve them in depth, by so doing, we know that at the end of the day, we will achieve a very long-term goal. So these are some importance of budget. Now let's look at types of budget. Types of budget, we have a periodic budget and a rolling budget. So first let's look at rolling or continuous budget. So rolling budget, another name is what? A continuous budget. A rolling budget, another name is a continuous budget. So they are budgets which we prepare with initial intention of preparing, you know, preparing new budgets to replace expired portion of the budget. So let me give you an example. Rolling budget, rolling budget. All right. So if we are working with a rolling budget, for instance, assuming we are in 2020, so it's not assuming we are in 2024. If you want to prepare budget for 2024, and we start by preparing a budget in quarters, so Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So if by the end of Q1, if Q1 ends, then we know that Q1 has ended. So we need to prepare a new budget to replace the expired portion, which is Q1. So we go to 2025 and then prepare Q1 for 2025. So that from Q2 in 2024 to Q1 in 2025, we still have 1 year budget. So once we end Q2, we prepare another budget for Q2 2025. You see, so we will continue to do that. And when we do such a thing, we say that we are dealing with a rolling budget or a continuous budget. So it will continue to infinity. You see that? So set a budget is a periodic budget. So we prepare set budget with an initial intention that any time there is an expired portion of the budget, we will prepare new budget to replace the expired portion. The opposite is a periodic budget, where we prepare a budget for a given period and we don't prepare any new budget to replace any expired portion. We leave the entire budget to expire before entirely new budget is prepared. And those types of budgets are known as what periodic budgets. It is the most common one. All right. Incremental and zero-based budgeting. So incremental budget is a budget which is prepared with by using another budget as a base. So for instance, we can prepare our 2025 budget by using 2024 as a base, where we say, okay, we think that we did well in 2024. So let's use 2024 budget and maybe increase the whatever we did in 2024 by 25%, and that will be our new budget. So when we prepare such a budget, it is known as an incremental budget. The opposite is the zero-based budget, where we prepare a budget from scratch with no budget being used as a base. So we prepare an entirely new budget with all the necessary entirely new assumptions. See that? All right. Activity-based budgeting, when we prepare our budget based on the activities undertaken by the organization. As for flexible budgets, fixed budgets, we will look at that later when we get to flexible budgeting as a topic. All right. So there are some resources very important when we are looking at budgeting. The first one is budget committee. So the budget committee is a group of people mostly nominated by various departments to come together to help in the preparation of a budget. And the budget manual is a document that guides the preparation of a budget. So the budget manual is a policy document which will tell us what time to prepare a budget, how to go about preparing a budget and all that within the organization. Then principal budget factor is a resource which will limit us in how far we can go as an organization. You see, so it's very important. It could be our machine capacity. It could be our market size. it could be our finances, any resource at all that will limit us as to how far we can go. Anytime we are preparing a budget, such a resource is considered principal or critical budget factor. You see that? So, for instance, and it is very important so that you know how to put your budget together. Because if you know that your machine capacity is 100,000, you don't go budgeting for 200,000. You see, so that is very key, critical or principal budget factor. All right, so in budgeting, anytime we want to budget, first we set up or we need to identify our principal budget factor. Once we identify that, we need to put together the budget committee. Then the budget committee will request for what we call functional budget from the various units or departments or divisions within the organization. So the functional budgets are the individual budgets prepared by the divisions or the units within the particular organization. So for instance, the sales department will prepare sales budget. The production department will prepare production budget. The HR department will prepare a labor department and so on and so forth. So all those budgets are known as functional budget. So once the functional budgets are prepared and submitted to the budget committee, they will review that, add, subtract, depending on whatever they find in their review. And if they are okay with the functional budget, then those functional budgets will be used as basis to put together the master budget. The master budget is a budget prepared in a form of a complete set of financial statements. You see that? So once the master budget is prepared and is reviewed and okayed by the budget committee, it then goes to those charged with governance. It will depend on the kind of organization. Those charged with governance could be the management or the board or any other body that is in charge of governance with the organization. So they will approve the budget and it will come for execution. Also, in order to execute the budget, it should be communicated to all parties or stakeholders within the organization. Then execution can start. And finally, we can control it. If we say we want to control it, meaning we will compare it with actual identified variances and work to improve the variances. So that is how a budget is prepared. One, you need to identify your critical budget factor. Two, you need to put a budget committee together. Three, the budget committee need to solicit for functional budget from the various divisions and review same. Once they okay the functional budget will then be used to put together the master budget. The master budget will then be approved by those charged with governance and will be communicated to all stakeholders for implementation and control. All right. So that is that with the written aspect. Please, you can read through. So for the sake of this class, functional budget will be looked. So now let's look at how to prepare functional budget. So for functional budget, we'll be looking at the budget like the sales budget. The sales budget. And then we'll also be looking at production budget. Production budget. And then we'll also look at material purchase budget. Material purchase budget. Even before purchase, let's look at material usage. So material usage budget. Then we come to material purchase budget. Purchase budget. Oh, yeah. Purchase. And then we look at labor costs. Labor costs budget. So these are the main functional budget now we'll be looking at. Sometimes we can add production cost budget or budgeted production cost, and then even add budgeted cost of sales. But of course, this is intro level 1. So let's concentrate on these 4: sales budget, production budget, material usage budget, material purchase budget, labor budget. So in fact, they all come with formats. So you need to appraise yourself with the formats before you'll be able to uh, you'll be able to handle these uh, this kind of budget. So you need to know the 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 format before you can handle such budgets. All right. So let me see if we can. I'm coming. Just some few minutes. I want to see how many minutes we've done so far. Okay, 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 okay. Since- All right, we cannot see it. Let's continue. Let's continue. All right. Okay, so let's continue. So these are the the formats. So we will look at the format one after the other. But as we before we look at the format, let's pick a question and solve so that we can look at it together with the format. All right. So let's look at question